Internet Vikings World of Experts.
Hello, everybody. A little bit about our amazing guest today. So, after completing his MA in 2015, Dennis began his career as a Swedish diplomat. As a part of his desire to start his own public affairs consulting firm, Dennis relocated to Malta, where the iGaming industry began to lure him in. In 2019, he combined his strategic communication skills to author the official history book of the Swedish iGaming industry, titled The Remote Swedish iGaming Industry. He joined Internet Vikings in 2019 and has since returned to Sweden, when he has achieved and exceeded a number of goals and targets. And this actually is wow. We have some exceptionally talented and accomplished members of our team here at Internet Vikings. And I'm sure you are itching to hear what Dennis has to share with us today. Dennis, welcome to the show one more time. And I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you, Sophia.
Let's get started with our questions. And the first question from my side will be about regulations. So as we know, regulations play an essential role in the iGaming industry worldwide. What is that important to know about the European regulated market specifically?
I mean, if we take like the way it's developed, I would say it's almost gone in a very long circle over the past 20 years. So first, iGaming as a concept was born pretty much around the year 2000 or a few years before that, actually, with NetEnt, etc. And in the beginning, it was only like Curacao, for instance, that could offer any sort of licensing. So most companies went there to get the license. And then in 2005, Malta and the MGA, then it was the LGA, I think, Lottery and Gaming, launched the Maltese iGaming regulations, and all the companies were relocating to Malta to start targeting all the EU countries from the MGA license, basically. And then that's like started this wild west era between 2005 2010, when it was very profitable to be in iGaming. Everyone was moving towards Malta and targeting pretty much any European country from there. And I guess this era kind of ended around 2010 when France legalized iGaming. And after that, there was like more and more countries following suit and launching their own regulations. And we've seen a lot of consolidation in the industry for the past 10 years, which is still ongoing. First, it was large European operators buying up smaller ones. Now we see large land-based American companies buying up large European operators, game providers, etc. So that always obviously will lead to more startups popping up. But we also have, when it comes to the regulations, many countries have become very stringent and maybe too stringent. I think Denmark used to be like a very good example of how you create a very sound regulatory system, where you have a very small black market, so to speak. But also Denmark has changed a few things to make it worse. And the channelization is really low in many countries. So now we see more and more operators turning back to Curacao again, which was the place where they all were 20 years ago. That is what I think it's like the major change over the past years. And obviously, regulation makes technological aspects easier and more difficult at the same time, because usually there is some sort of replication server needed from a hosting company's point of view. It's like something we need to look into when we design our products, that they might need replication in certain jurisdictions, etc. Replication, though, is not really it's usually not a huge amount of technology needed to run that application. So in general, we still, the data center locations and those kind of things will still be in the location where it makes sense from a latency point of view. And the replication part is a rather small part when it comes to the technology. But at Internet Vikings, obviously, we've set up our locations with that in mind, so that operators can have replication servers where they need to fulfill regulatory requirements.
Okay, thank you so much. You also provide us like the short history of the European market transformation over, like, I guess, the last decade. What would you say that were the most significant changes and improvements, and how did they, I don't know, impact the industry in general?
The most important changes, yeah, that would be the country regulations. Like when Sweden regulated, for instance, that felt across the industry, and then we had Germany-ish last year. I don't know, nobody really knows what's going on there. Still to this day, it's a bit unclear exactly what the regulations are. And then Finland now, before the new year, also took some steps towards a licensing regime. And then we even have Hungary now. I read in the news this week, actually, that's going to launch some regulations. And obviously, this also it provides some sort of clarity for operators to operate in the markets. The industry has asked for regulations, but at the same time, if the regulations are too stringent, and then it will drive a bigger black market, of course. And then, like, one big change, I think, is that people are looking away from Europe at the moment. Asia is a region where iGaming is growing rapidly, and a lot of European operators are very active there. Something we don't talk that much about, but maybe it's because mostly it's gray markets and they don't really want to announce what they're doing there anyway. But it's part of the expansion that we are taking part of at Internet Vikings, with our data centers in Singapore and Taiwan, where we can service like expansions to India and Japan, and all those markets where a lot of operators are going currently, and also game providers. So, but then when it comes to technology, it's mostly gone from like dedicated environments into cloud. That's the general change. And when people talk about cloud, it's it's as if it's not really bound by any territorial constraints, but obviously cloud is just a way of packaging dedicated servers in a way that the provider takes care of the redundancy within the hosting environments, and you basically rent it as opposed to owning your own hardware, and so on and so forth, which makes it more flexible, also cheaper in the long run. You don't need to plan for your own redundancy, etc., and also more fail-proof, obviously. So that's a big change, but that's a change we've seen in every industry, going from dedicated environment to cloud. Yeah, that would be one of the big changes, I guess.
That's a lot. That's a significant change, I must say. Great. Swedish companies have for the past 20 years been among the world's most innovative to online gaming. And you also authored the history book, The Remote Swedish iGaming Industry, as I already mentioned in the introduction. Could you please share some words with us about it?
Yeah, basically, when I first came to Malta, as you mentioned during the introduction, I came from diplomatic backgrounds, and then I was running my own company as a consultant, and then I was mostly engaged with lobbyism and like policy work for think tanks, these kind of things. And Malta was just interesting for me because I took my master degree in Italy, and I wanted to stay in the Mediterranean region. And then I was thinking, okay, where can I find a good environment to live in? Because Italy is it's not really easy to integrate there as a foreigner in the same way. So I was looking at Malta, Cyprus, or maybe Israel, and fell on Malta. And when I was in Malta, I was gradually dragged into the iGaming industry, first doing some policy work there as well. And then we decided to write this book where I basically went out to all the big Swedish companies, and we wrote this book together. They told me all their stories of how they were bootstrapping in the beginning and so on and so forth. And Karin Jansson Myhr was the other author, and she's editor at the Swedish Center for Business History, and they are also the publisher of the book. So we teamed up with Play and Go, Kindred, Betsson, Mr. Green, Lou Vegas, and Cherry Group were the ones participating in the book, so to speak. And it took about a year, and then we could release the book same time as the Swedish regulations were launched, basically. That was a fun project, obviously. And that's how I also entered into the iGaming sector. After that, I joined Internet Vikings, etc.
Very good. Great. Sounds great. That was an amazing journey, I believe.
Yeah.
And I know that you are also a well-known B2B key account manager, and that's actually your position at Internet Vikings. What could you share with us about the sales processes in the iGaming industry?
I guess it's similar to most B2B industries. iGaming is a bit of a tribe. It's very tribal. So if you haven't been in the industry before and you just try to access it very quickly, it might not be very easy. Because as I said, it's tribal. People are used to the common faces they see on the expos and networking events and so on. And in certain jurisdictions where iGaming is a very strong industry, where most companies are based. So if you're an outsider, then it can be hard to enter, basically. And but obviously it's also a very quick industry, so speed is something that everyone likes. I think that's essential to care for your customer relations by answering very quickly and taking action very quickly, being able to prioritize when a customer needs help with something urgently. You walk the extra mile and do everything as quickly as possible. That's my recipe. And then hosting is obviously something that companies replace very seldom, or when they expand into a new market, they need it, and they usually need it very quick. But changing provider is very difficult. It requires a lot of human resources because of the migrations, etc. So the trick is to stay on top of mind without being a pain in the ass. That's a very delicate balancing act, because you always have to keep reminding people of your existence, so that when the day comes and they say, oh, now we need servers to go live in Asia, the first thought will be, oh, let's call that Dennis guy at Internet Vikings. And then you need to be very quick when they do. Those are that's key to the game, I would say.
Sounds amazing. I just have one more additional question. We've been talking about the European market and also about the speed. And you mentioned that there are also the other markets, for example, Asian market, that also has a great speed into how they develop inside of the iGaming industry. Would you say that European market is a leading market across all the other markets, or which market is actually the leading market, if we can classify them like that?
I mean, when it comes to markets as in where there are a lot of players of iGaming products, then I guess, I mean, I haven't checked the numbers recently, but Sweden has always been a big market in that regard. That ties into the history book as well, why I know this. And that's basically because it was something that the state trained people to do a very long time ago in Sweden. Sweden used to fight a lot of wars against Russia back in the days, 300 years ago. And every time they did that, they raised money through state lotteries to finance the war. And then this developed into different kinds of lotteries that were funding the Swedish sports, organized sports, and also when it comes to horse breeding, horse prodding, all these things were financed through state lotteries and eventually Svenska Spel and this state monopoly. Bingolotto is a concept that everyone who grew up in Sweden knows about. Their grandmas are playing it, etc. So from there, it's a very easy transition to go into online gambling. Whereas in a country where you haven't had a state monopoly before, people might be a bit more skeptic to gambling in general. But European markets have always been quite strong here, I guess. But also Asia has some sort of tradition in this regard. Games need to be a little bit different in the mathematic, in the way the math works with the game, as far as I've heard from some game providers. But then when we talk about the companies as such, then I would say like Sweden, UK, and Israel is where like that's the core early companies in iGaming came from one of these three jurisdictions mostly. And yeah, land-based, obviously you have United States, which has always been very, very strong presence. So yeah, that would be my, but European companies are much more tech savvy. You see the American ones that are going into Europe now, acquiring European companies, they're not really as tech savvy as the European companies that have been doing online gaming for 20 years. So they are like, yeah, we want to we want to use our muscle here that we have gained from all the land-based operations and take a cake from what you've developed online. And I think it's going to be quite interesting to follow how that will develop, and especially how online gaming will develop on the US markets now when more and more states are regulating there. But for me, like Asia is also equally interesting. It's just since there are no regulation happening there, it's much more under the radar. You won't read as much about it as with the US market, but obviously it's very strong current in that direction as well right now. At Internet Vikings, we're seeing it every day. But when you're a hosting company, everything is very confidential. We can barely announce the customers that we have. Nobody wants to do press releases with us about big partnerships because, yeah, hosting is a sensitive issue. We hope, of course, that they want to do that as much as possible, but that's just something you have to accept sometimes. And yeah, that's basically what we can say. I can't say much.
Sure. Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Dennis. Me personally, I learned so much. And I'm sure our listeners also learned some new information today about the European iGaming market. Thank you for interesting discussion and sharing your expertise with us.
Do not miss our future podcasts. Subscribe now.